fundamentally, what we do at £500,000 and what we do at £50 million, they want to know that you care.
You know, literally ending your day 30 seconds before you walk in the house, and then you're straight into the chaos of bath time, and trying to give my all to be there in the moment with my kids. I found that really hard. It's something that I've really had to work at.
What's your idea of success? Is it financial? Is it the fact that you want to go to work?
Welcome to the next episode of Navigating. Today I have my brother, Jake Russell, here with us. This is a funny one for me. Jake and we're 11 months apart, and we've pretty much lived in the same room for basically our whole lives, apart from a brief interlude when we decided to go to different universities. So I suspect there's lots today that we'll cover that we're very familiar with, but there's probably some stuff that we've never discussed. And so welcome, Jake. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
The question that I get asked every single time is, what's it worth? What's it like working with family? You must fight all the time. And I wonder if you get that question, and what's it like?
It comes up every day, every single day. And I always... It's a hard one to answer, really, because I've never known anything different, and I absolutely love it. So, and I think for a lot of people, it depends on what their relationships are like with their siblings, with their parents. I mean, as you know, we've virtually never had a fight. The only altercation I can think of is when you.
No, don't do that.
And you destroyed that Lego house I spent all Sunday building.
That was my Lego pirate ship that you smashed.
And that must have been aged, I don't know, 5 or 6. And from there, joking aside, I think we, not just you and me, but all of us together, we see the world in the same way. I think we're sort of cut from the same cloth. I think you put a independent problem in front of each and every one of us, and I think we'll all arrive at similar conclusions, whether it's sort of just, I don't know, working styles or ethics or what we think the right thing to do is. And in our industry, it's so competitive, isn't it? We're lucky because we collaborate with our competitors a great deal, but it's a cutthroat world, and it's a difficult market sometimes to navigate. And so I think feeling like you've got your siblings or your parents alongside you is a huge comfort, and I draw great strength from that. So yeah, I absolutely love it. I mean, obviously I've got Hattie working with me as well, so a lot of people are like, I often say I work with my brothers, my sister, my wife, my dad, and at the last count I think we've got 2 cousins in the business.
Tell us the story about how you met Hattie. So Hattie's your wife, if anyone doesn't know.
Hattie's my wife, and we met in property. I won't give you the love story.
But no. I think we were both. I think it was Hattie's first. I think she transitioned from lettings to sales.
She did,
and I think it was the first sale that she ever did. And
I don't know if that's true, but
it makes for a good story. But I remember going on the viewing, and I remember we were both there with the buyer. The buyer had left, and I think you walked out and goes, "Oh, she's quite pretty, isn't she?"
It was actually, we were doing an agent's launch at 31 Park Walk, and we were hosting it, and that was when I first met her, and I wasn't brave enough to ask her out on a date, and so I decided that one slightly sort of sneaky way of interacting more with her was to try and get buyers that I was working with to be interested in properties that she was selling. And so I had this one applicant who had sold a house in Kensington, and they were downsizing, and Hattie was selling a house in SW10. So I took them there as a sort of sub-agent and introduced them, and they ended up buying the house. And it was from there that I had the courage to actually ask her to celebrate that deal. And from there, we got
Amazing.
seeing each other more.
Well, maybe we're incentivizing our salespeople in the wrong way. Commission isn't the right thing. Maybe we need love. We need to find attraction in our peers.
Yeah. No, so it's funny. Yeah, so working with her is great as well. I mean, a lot of people think that's an odd relationship, the odd thing to have as well, to be working with your wife all day, every day. But again, I love it. I love it. I think I think the best gift I've ever received is having the siblings that I have. And I'm also conscious of the fact that, I've got quite a few friends who have lost their parents. A lot of friends who don't see their parents very often. Some people see their parents once, twice, 3 times a year. And yeah, I just feel so lucky that I get to do it all. I get to speak to Dad every day.
Did you feel there was pressure to come into the business? Because we're now 15, 16 years into our careers, and for me, I feel like I don't know. I'm not sure I would have been doing this if it wasn't for Dad. And I also feel like we could be manufacturing toothpaste, and it almost doesn't matter what we're doing, but the joy is all working together and figuring out problems together. I mean, I love what we do, but did you? I suppose I've never asked you, but I mean, what did you think of Russell Simpson before you started? Did you feel any pressure? What was your idea of Russell Simpson and understanding of it before?
I didn't feel any pressure whatsoever from Dad, from Mum, from you, from anyone really. I felt like they were willing and very much proactively encouraging us to do things that we were passionate about and that we loved, and that if you pursue something that you have a genuine interest in, then it's a sort of self-sustaining, long-term, thing that you'll do well from. I suppose, you studied history of art, I studied history of art, Hermione studied history of art, Leo studied history. We've all got an interest in the arts and history, and I think we've all got an interest in architecture, interior design, and so there are certain things that are sort of university education, for instance, I can see how it segues quite nicely into the world of property. And I certainly feel like I've always had an interest in that, but I never really spent any time thinking about whether or not I was going to work at Russell Simpson or not. I think Dad said the same thing to me that he said to you, which was, why don't you base yourself up in London, come and take a desk, try use this as a launch pad to go into whatever industry or job you want to go into. And so there was never any pressure whatsoever. It was, and then 16 years later, here we are. So no, I didn't feel any pressure. And yeah, I genuinely love what we do. I'm passionate about the business, about the actual sort of job that we do, and the journey that we're all on as a group. Actually, not just, we're talking here about family, but it's not just about family any longer. There are people in the business, who feel like family, and it's as much part of a journey with them as it is with my siblings and parents, and
Yeah. I think that there's a lot of people nowadays that want to be in creative jobs and industries, and I definitely want that as well. But I feel like what we do, and I'm sure what a lot of people do in business in general, is problem solve, and it's their creative solutions, creative outlet that
the other
we
thing,
get a lot of.
The other thing that I found, I don't know if you found this, but I was so interested in art, practicing it and studying it, and I couldn't figure out a way that I could. I suppose that Russell Simpson took over before I had a chance to really explore working that well. But what I've quickly figured out is that it's a great passion to have outside of work. You know, the living in London, for instance, the galleries and the museums, and it's a fun sort of extracurricular thing to do. And so I've managed to find that. You know, I've managed to do that outside of work, as well as channeling the sort of creative itch that I have, and I think that we all have.
And boring your applicants about Picasso.
Yeah. But then the other thing, which I was going to say, picking up on one of the points that you made earlier, is just reflecting on Dad. What is fascinating, I probably never really stopped to think about this, but he's just exactly who he is at home as he is at work. And so in a funny sort of way, transitioning from being a child of his to being a sort of colleague of his was just consistent with everything that I knew up to date. I think the influence that you can have as a parent on your children is impossible, I think, to underestimate. And it's what he's taught us all about generosity or manners, or I don't know.
But it was all through actions, not through words.
Exactly.
I think for me, I think I had very similar experience to that, but I definitely, because he's not someone that will teach through words or through sort of inspirational speeches. He teaches through actions and values, and so we've, I don't feel I've ever had sort of, big kind of lessons from him, or sort of spoken sort of guidance or anything like that. But so many things that you've learned through those experiences and those values. And so to start working with him, it was extraordinary to meet clients, peers, colleagues who were just so unbelievably respectful, and they said such amazing things about him. And all of those values that we took for granted, that we grew up, when you grow up, you take for granted the things that your environment.
We just assume that
everyone's doing that.
Yeah. And I think, touching on that point, meeting for 15 years, or 16 years, or however long it is that I've been doing this, it's the same message just over and over again, virtually on a daily basis. And I suppose what that does is it compounds and gives you confidence in the lessons that you learned as a child and then up into sort of adulthood. So,
I mean, I feel like there's, growing up, there was there's this environment we grew up in that was just natural. It was just this very, he was just very generous, very kind, very, all of the values that are just natural, that are now part of Russell Simpson. But there was also, for me, this understanding that to be successful in business, you had to be this sort of cutthroat and competitive person and create this environment that was sort of, a bit ruthless, perhaps. And
you think you're obviously not talking about Dad there, so you're thinking popular culture or film,
books, and then to come into Russell Simpson and see that, he was getting such great feedback, such great referrals, such great loyalty from people, from being this generous, soft, kind, honest person. And I think at the beginning, it's, you go through, we're both a bit older now, but in your 20s, you don't quite have I didn't have the ability to reflect on that and to understand that fully. And I think what I'm seeing now, and I know we speak about this all the time, but Russell Simpson's been going 45 years. We've been there for 15, 16 years each. And it feels like you can have all of those values and you can make a success of it. And that felt really, those two things felt, there was sort of friction, and they were sort of at odds with each other.
I suppose the question is, what's your idea of success? Like, is it financial? Is it market share? Is it how happy you are? Is it how fulfilled you feel going to work? Is it the fact that you want to go to work tomorrow after the day that you've had today? Like, I don't know
what's yours?
I think it's, I want to feel proud about what I do, and want to feel excited and enthusiastic about it, and I want us all to be the absolute best at what we do, but I also don't want to compromise on how we all feel about going to work. I want to feel happy going to work, and I think that if I'm happy at work, I can do a much better job anyway. And so a lot of what I think we've learned from Dad as well is it's the long-term view that counts. It's the long-term view that creates the space to think the way that you'll or behave the way that we're talking about here. Whereas if you're being marked on how many phone calls you make today, or how many viewings you did this week, or how many offers you had last month, you're engineering a situation where it's so short-termist, and if there's that much pressure heaped on top of you, then I suppose it's only natural that you know, I don't know.
I think that, I mean, I completely agree, obviously, but I think there's, you know, so much of our industry is based on those KPIs, and I think we were very lucky that we came into an industry where, you know, it's developed massively in the last 15 years, but we were also taught by someone who was doing things in a sort of old school way, and I think all of them were doing it back then. And I think a lot of things have been more data driven, more analytical, and yeah, I suppose Dad's just he's never had that part of him. We never learnt it, and we've carried on doing what we're doing. And I think for someone to set up their own estate agency nowadays, there is such an influence by sort of shiny marketing and KPI. You know, people see shiny marketing and they experience KPIs at work, so they start a business where those are their sort of the core pillars of their business. And I think we're very fortunate that we've got this 45-year history that it does work doing it the way we're doing it. And I suppose we're just ridiculously similar, and we want to sleep well at night and be proud of what we've done. And I'm sure there are hundreds of different ways to do that.
Exactly.
We both have 3 kids each. And you know, we're repeating history. What I think you said to me once, he's like, all I want is 6 kids.
Did I?
You said, all I want is 6 kids, but I'm not crazy enough to do it. So you were like, let's both have 3 kids each, and then we could have 6 kids together. And for a year when we lived next to each other, it was, you know, that was the dream was achieved. And
then you bloody well moved out.
And then we moved out. So, you know, based on your experience growing up and how your, you know, life has progressed, how do you, you know, would you like your kids to join Russell Simpson? Do you have any thoughts on, you know, what their future looks like and how you're...
I mean, when my kids were younger, I would spend a lot of time thinking and worrying about, you know, you worry about all these things, and actually we've already sort of touched on it in this conversation already, which is to say that actually kids learn best by actions and not by words. And so whilst I sort of, you know, you spend a lot of time thinking about it and talking about it and worrying about, you know, all this kind of stuff, actually I think the best thing to do is to act as you would like them to follow, and then the rest will take care of itself. But I'd absolutely love it. But he's only 6, 4 and 2, so.
I was.
How about you?
Well, Jess, my wife, she came in the other day. I work from home occasionally, and she came in, I think on Monday last week, with our 1-year-old, and Mara sat on my lap and started typing away on my keyboard. And Jess said, "Oh, this is exactly what she does when you're not here." And so she sort of walks like a sort of drunk old man, you know, through the house to my study, and she gets up on my little wheelie chair and she starts typing away. And Jess is like, "Yeah, well, every time you're not here," she sort of drunkenly, you know, little 1-year-old drunken walk down to your study, jumps up on your swirly chair, and sort of precariously starts typing away furiously at your computer. And yeah, it just makes you realize, like, the actions that you do really have a massive influence on what they're taking in. And yeah, I suppose, I mean, for me, it's been, having kids has been a seminal moment in my life where, you have to be less selfish. You have to be more aware. And it's, for the last 5 or 6 years, it's been a really interesting time for me to try and figure out how to balance spending really quality time with my kids, being the person I want to be, not spending all my time on my phone and feeling stressed because of work, but then also loving work and wanting to give my everything to work.
I'm very, I feel I'm very switched on and aware to that balance. I'm conscious of the fact that I probably work too hard, and so it is a constant battle to be present when you're with them and to ring fence the time outside of work to spend quality time with them. So it's a constant battle, and it's you feel better about it when you know that everyone else is trying to figure out the same puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, it's chaos, this stage of life, and I think with particularly you hear so much stuff about family businesses where kids have grown up speaking about the family business at every dinner and lunch table, and yeah, it's I think there's some great stuff about that. You're illustrating some hard work and your values, and you're exposing them to some good stuff, but you're also that dynamic of balance is difficult to try and get right. And I think, like, for me, I found it really hard. I mean, we speak most mornings and most evenings, driving into work, driving back from work, we're talking about work, and I always found it quite tough, literally ending your day 30 seconds before you walk in the house, and then you're straight into the chaos of bath time and trying to give my all to be there in the moment with my kids. I found that really hard. It's something that I've really had to work at, and some days are better than others, but
yeah, I've struggled with exactly the same problems, and I'm sure most of the time we're not doing it right, but you're trying, and I suppose you just have to be mindful of trying to do better, be better at it, and yeah, it's a constant sort of goal that you're striving for that's probably always going to be out of reach. But I suppose at least if you're conscious of it, then you're in some capacity trying to improve on it or work on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not easy.
It's not easy. To flip back to work, what are the things at the moment that you're most excited about? What are the things you enjoy most doing?
There are so many different things that gets me excited, enthusiastic. I mean, I love the job itself. I love what it is that we do on a day-to-day basis. Love spending time interacting with people, problem solving. And I think I'm probably naturally an extrovert. I take energy from being around other people. And so that part of the day-to-day, I enjoy the problem solving of putting deals together and getting over hurdles and getting to that successful point of making a genuine difference for a seller and a buyer. Is something that I love, but I also really enjoy the team environment that we have internally. I also I really enjoy the process that we spend so much time talking about in terms of actually improving the business itself, from a marketing point of view, or from a cultural point of view internally, or from a service point of view. Those problem solving bits and pieces I enjoy, and that evolution is what I think gets me excited and keeps me interested. I love what our marketing team are doing. I think what they've done over the course of the last few years has been incredible, and the curiosity to try and experiment with new things. This is a perfect example of doing a podcast. I think I've loved doing the guides and stories, the journal part of our website is something that.
I mean, I suppose that brings in the history, the sort of history, creative art side of things.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is like a natural interest of mine, understanding the history or the provenance of a house or the stories behind the people who have lived in them. And that naturally appeals to my interest and curiosity. But I think it also does to the buyers. And I think the sellers take pride in that as well. And so much of our job is not just the matchmaking of, a person looking for a certain type of property and then putting them together with that property, but it's actually the chemistry that exists that's sort of quite hard to define, between why a buyer falls in love with a house. And I think a lot of the things that we do, particularly in Kensington and Chelsea, the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, taps into that, the history aspects or the architecture aspects or the stories behind a lot of these houses. And so I think it's been a really interesting exercise because it has so much good feedback. I think it really appeals. I think the sellers see a real value in it, and I think the buyers, it gives a certain depth.
I was thinking you I mean, a lot of people here won't know this, but we have two departments in the sales team, and you handle properties from 5 million and above. And quite a lot of the properties over 10, 15 million are off market, very sort of quiet. Whenever I interview people for the role, we have a lot of questions about, and you might not hear this, but people are sort of nervous about what those people are like, and what kind of service you must offer a completely different service, and can you give us an idea of the types of conversations or the differences about handling people at sort of 30, 40, 50 million mark? You always talk about, I mean, I was joking about Picasso earlier, but you love talking about some of these properties as sort of art pieces, and not as a sort of investor trade, analysing, exact price per square foot. There's much more of a kind of artistic element to it.
I think no one rule applies to everything, but generally speaking, in my experience at least, people are the same across the board. I think there's an idea that the really, really, really wealthy people are completely different to everyone else. I think they're very much the same as the rest of us. It's just the quantities that we think in on a day-to-day basis, they're thinking in the same capacity, but just with a few extra zeros. I mean, it's as simple as that. Particularly in the area that I now work in, Kensington, Holland Park and Notting Hill, you're dealing with, I think the majority of our buyers are somewhere between 30 and 45, and they're at the same sort of stage of life as we're at, and they worry about the same things that we worry about. They worry about their
all this chat about kids, and
how that translates into a property wise is, a lot of people spend, the heart and soul of the house is the kitchen, and a lot of the current buyers have done away with this sort of Victorian formality of a first floor drawing room and a kitchen in the lower ground floor that's occupied by staff. There's a desire to have width going out onto outdoor space and the convenience of off-street parking, say, for instance, and high ceilings and good light, and where are we going to live our lives and interact with our kids. And it's no different whether you're spending 1 million or 75. I think more often than not. I mean, obviously, I think there's a huge variety, but
I was hoping you were going to say something like that, because I think there's sort of a myth around this. That wealth brings completely different people. For me, one of the greatest things that I've learned over the last however many years we've been doing this is the properties are amazing, but the people that we meet are fascinating, and it's, I suppose we're not, it's not a commercial transaction really. It's a heartfelt transaction that you really get deep into these people's relationships, and you become familiar with their kids and husband and wife relationships, and it's, there's a lot of very normal stuff, and I think for me it's really helped me understand more about myself and about my life with my kids and my wife and the dynamic with my family and work.
Well, I think it also, like, going back to what we were talking about in terms of, from a work point of view, what do we think of as success? I think probably, it helps to see on a daily basis that whether you're rich or poor, or anywhere in between, we're all battling with the same demons, all struggling with the same challenges in a fundamental way, and that behaving how you wish your children to behave is a principle that is irrespective of how wealthy you are. I also think that, going back to your original question, ultimately at the end of it all of our clients, the one thing that they all share in common is they want to know that you care, and that there's a human aspect to understanding what the process is and listening. I mean, of course, there are rental investments and investor-only buyers and all sorts of kaleidoscope.
And those are fun to do as well.
Yeah, but again, it just comes back to listening and understanding what the goal and the objective is, and then creating a strategy that works with that person's. Because at the end of it all of these properties, there's someone at the end of the chain who, who's in charge, and they want to know that you're listening and that you're approaching things in an intelligent way. So yeah, in answer to your question, I think fundamentally what we do at £500,000 and what we do at £50 million is still guided by that same thing, I think.
Yeah. For going on to something slightly different and looking forwards, for me, for so long, I felt like I'm sort of guardian of our dad Alan's sort of reputation and the business that he started. And I think for us now, we've been there 15, 16 years. Do you feel now like there's? I mean, I still don't really feel it's our thing to carry on, like to take on, but yeah, looking towards the future, I mean, how do you feel about what the future looks like for our industry and for our business? And do you feel like you can take that on? And I mean, I'm sort of always worried about messing up Dad's reputation and what he's built.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't feel, I feel indebted to him, and very much like we have tough acts to follow, and I sort of feel a responsibility to him, but I also feel a responsibility to you, to Leo, to all of us in the business, to be honest, to Hermione and to not just the family members, but to everyone in the business. So I sort of feel like I feel beholden to that responsibility. And do I feel equipped or ready for what the future holds? I mean, again, going back to what we talked about right at the beginning, I take great sort of solace and comfort in the fact that we're in it together, and that really there's no substitute for hard work. And if we put all of those things together, we'll find a way through one way or another, regardless of what it throws at us. It doesn't weigh me. I don't feel like it weighs me down. It inspires me. It gives me.
I think, a lot of people I speak to who have set up their own businesses or running businesses, I think it can be quite a lonely existence, and I think there is quite a lot of weight on people's shoulders. And I think we take it for granted, and we've never done anything else, but having each other to bounce ideas off of, or sort of gain some kind of confidence, because every day is a every day is a school day, and we're constantly.
I think I think we're probably very lucky that, you know, in work or outside of work, you know, as I said earlier, being one of 6 kids, you have always got, regardless of what happens, whether it's at work or at home, you've always got someone there who's got your back, and it's a sort of unconditional love and trust, and that, I think, gives us all a really solid base that probably we all take for granted and underestimate. There's a strength in that will help us muddle through.
Well, on that, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
And
thank you very
look
much.
forward to the next few years.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you.